the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, and exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. And now, this
Well, there you go. We have got Linda James coming up here with us tonight on Six Screens of the Watchtower. Apostle Babe, healing after the Watchtower. Hello, Linda.
Hello, Rick. Hello, Rick. It's good to be here.
Good to be here. Yeah, good to have you here on YouTube. I should have worked this out today. I wasn't thinking. I got kind of overloaded with stuff. But, yeah, we'll get you on YouTube now every Saturday night if you like. And we'll keep it going for 3 hours.
I put my makeup on, so I have to be tonight, you know?
Well, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. My goodness, no, that's that. I'm gonna put the blame on me. I should have got a hold of you and told you. But
that's okay.
We're gonna make sure we get you on here every Saturday night. So you're looking good. You're moving in the right direction. Things are moving. Hey, that program we did last week, that's unbelievable. That apostate.
Oh my gosh!
I still getting a lot of people emailing me on that. They loved it. You know,
that was a blast.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me host with you. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. You did a great job. In fact, I'll tell you, people loved you in there, Linda. I think we're going to make you a movie star here very shortly. No, I got people really. In fact, I went back. I listened to the program. You really helped me a lot. You've got a good way about you. People like that. One woman wrote me and said that you really should have been in show business, you know?
Thank you, whoever you are. Thank you. I'll tell this to my mother. Mom, I should have been in show business. Why'd you take me out of that acting? Actually, my mom had me in this little dancing class when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And we sang The Merry-Go-Round Broke Down at the Pomona Fair. And I can remember being a little kid thinking, yeah, this is where I belong, on stage singing Papa. Like, it was so casual and so natural to me.
Yeah, no, I really, we got so many good comments on that program. And then
it was really fun.
Yeah, and then what we're going to do here again in the near future is we're going to have a YouTube awards night. And you're going to be my host on that too. And we're going to have all of these people from YouTube. You know a lot of them. I know a lot of them. And, you know, I think most of them need recognition. They get very little recognition. They put a lot of work, a lot of time into making these videos. So I want to be able to bring them on and to be able to have an awards night here, which would be wonderful.
Yeah, there's up and coming channels. There's ones that have been doing this advocacy or activism. So there's a little of both for years, and they've changed over time. And it's really neat to watch, because as I'm healing from my time in the org, which I left 40 years ago, but I'm still healing. You know, I still have stuff that I need to shed. So it's really wonderful to watch other people in their journey growing as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to cut you loose. I'm here if you need me. And I'm just going to get you on the video suite here as well. So that'll be good. Let's get you up there in the video suite. There we go. We'll get you up there so people can see you and you can do your thing. And I'm here if you need me.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick. So tonight I'm wanting to talk about the case that we just had. So let me just look it up. I'm looking at my smartphone. Here it is, my smartphone. So I'm wanting to talk about the case with, I just opened up Silent Lamb's article. There's many articles out right now on the two elders. I want to get their names right. I believe one is Clark and one is, I want to say his name right. I'm not seeing it. So give me just a moment here. Pinkava. Yes, Pinkava. Okay. So I wanted to talk about them because this is the latest news as far as what's going on regarding the organization and different court cases, because the org will go through different court cases and we get to read the things that are going on and stuff. And I actually couldn't find the latest news on what did happen with them. And this situation has been going on now for about 2 years. And here they are, very, very, very old. Okay. And even before this case started, even the courts were considering, are they too old to go through this? And is this even, okay to do this? And they had a bit of hesitancy, but then they chose to go through with it after all. So this has been a good 2 years for them to go through this. And they themselves were not the perpetrator of a rape of a 6-year-old. But what happened was someone in their congregation that was a 6-year-old, it was brought to these elders. It was brought to their attention. So it was reported, okay, that the 6-year-old was being molested by this certain person who is now in jail. That's a different case, where he's now spending like 40 years. And he was one of those really horrible guys, just awful, awful, awful. He was threatening to kill her if she told. He was threatening he would kill her family members. I'm not sure who he was to the family, but he was considered a family member. And they called the organization, which is what the Shepherd of the Flock book tells them to do. So they were going by what they were supposed to do as an elder. And of course, they believe that they're getting the best legal advice from headquarters, okay? And what they were told was that they had no obligation to report this report that they received regarding this child being molested by this certain person who was also, I believe he was a witness too, her perpetrator. They believed that they did not need to report it. They believed that they were in a state where it was not necessary to report, okay? Because there's this thing called mandatory reporting. And they were literally trusting in the organization to give them proper legal advice. Unfortunately, they did not get proper legal advice. I can recall, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I was hearing something to the effect that maybe they didn't talk to a lawyer. Maybe they just simply talked to some paralegal, I don't know what that was about, but it appeared that it was kind of letting the organization off the hook, because when they do call in, they have to give all of their information, but the elders don't get to find out who they're talking to. So when the judge asked, and the name of this lawyer, they had no clue who they talked to. Okay, so they're there going, but headquarters told us to do this. Headquarters told us we didn't have any responsibility. We called them for that very purpose. And outside in society at large, that does not fly. And to be honest, this is the first time that elders are being held accountable. I believe this is one of the first times for not reporting something that was reported to them. They go by what is called clergy tenant privilege. This is under the category of a confession. So if I was to go to the elders and confess something that I had done, they would not bring that up in court. And because they're considered, a clergy, they don't have to bring it up in court. But the 6-year-old did not come and confess that she did any sin. She went to them and said, this is what's happening to me. So what she did was make a report. Okay. Now, the deal is when you're a mandated reporter, you're supposed to report whether you know for sure or not. Okay. even, you're supposed to report allegations, meaning you don't have to go through everything to do your own investigation to make sure what you heard was accurate. You actually give that information to the people that do that, and then they carry it through, because that's actually something they're very good at. Okay. Now, I had a situation where this was not when I was in the org, and my oldest daughter was being there was a perpetrator after her, and that was pretty scary to me, and I did need some support to report this. And when I did report it, they took care of it. I reported it to the authorities, okay? Actually, the police department. So I made a police report and gave them everything I had as far as information I had on him. And trust me, I did my homework. I knew where this man lived. I knew he was married, and I knew he was after my daughter. And what ended up happening was, this was considered a third strike. And here in California, there was this thing like third strike, you're out. So the penalty would have been more, I'm not real clear, but it was third strike, you're out. So he ended up spending 3 years in jail because of what I did. Okay. I went to the proper authorities. So, and that was because this man was simply coming after my daughter. I don't believe that he was successful. I believe he was coming after her. And I had evidence to prove it. I had letters he wrote to her. He actually gave her little tapes to listen to, and he had like the most soothing voice, right? So if you can imagine a very soft, handsome, very, soothing voice, which is very comforting to listen to, that's also part of the grooming. He set up a texting situation where they could communicate together and stuff. The guy knew what he was doing. This was not his first time. So before I reported him to the police, I met him in person, talked to him, and then I sent another friend of mine to his house in the middle of the night, and this friend of mine told him to leave my daughter alone. So that was a little bit of my own style, okay? And then I went to the police, or I did before. I don't really remember, but this was quite a long time ago. And my fear was that I would have to take the stand, or that my daughter would. And at that time, she was 15, okay? And this was somebody that she met on public transportation, the public bus, okay? Perpetrators are out there, and they have an eye out for who they want, and they attempt to befriend people. They attempt to befriend families, and they got to get through the parents to get through to the children, which is what usually happens within churches or, say, the organization, okay? And it's very devastating for the fathers and the mothers because they trusted this certain person, but the fact is that because the organization has this thing set up to where they don't report allegations, they have this 2-witness rule, which means the elder has to do an investigation, right? So the way they do an investigation is they go up to the alleged perpetrator and they're like, so did you do it? Because so-and-so said you did. And if they say no, that's all they can do. This is just be like, well, he said no, he did not confess, our hands are tied, and that's as far as we can go. Unless there's a second witness that was actually there and saw this. But there's another thing about the second witness. It has to be a second witness who is in good standing with the organization in order to be trusted as the second witness. So this 2-witness rule that is biblical, the way it's brought up in the Bible is very different than how the organization has set it up to be. and I don't recall the scripture at this time, but the way it's set up in the Bible is back in the day, they would go and talk to somebody of authority within the city gates. So this was in a public situation, okay? And the way things are set up within the organization is 3 elders. Once they've heard of that there was an allegation, then 3 elders will question the person that's the alleged victim, okay? And then that's not too cool either. But I'm not going to get too much into that. I will probably not be. I'll probably just be really pissed off by the time I'm done describing it. But it's very inappropriate the way that victims end up being questioned once they report that they've been violated. Okay. So that's what happens within the organization. They have it set up in such a way that the victims, the alleged victims, reach one impasse after another impasse after another impasse after another impasse, so that it doesn't get reported. There is no police report made, and then it doesn't go to the proper people that are actually trained and know how to do this kind of investigation. Okay, let me go back to where I was. I was telling you earlier I was afraid I would have to go on the stand, or that she would have to go on the stand. That was not the case. Neither she nor I had to be on the stand at all. It was all taken care of by the investigators. So because of his past and what I gave them, he got himself put in jail. Okay? If I would have had the mindset of most Jehovah's Witnesses, which is, we don't trust the authorities of the world, they're all under the influence of the devil, so we just went to the elders, you know, I might still be waiting for things to be taken care of. And I don't know how that would be affecting me. I would assume that it would be very, very, very tough for my psyche, very, very tough for my daughter's psyche. So I can only imagine what this girl that was 6 years old, who did tell her mother what she went through. But what I do know is, once it was reported, it went on for another good 10 years. And it was horrendous. And she should not have had to go through this. Elders are told by people at headquarters that there is no need for them to report it. And I believe that these elders are trusting and believe in their instructions. But I'm not really sure that the organization headquarters is leading them in the right direction, because that state was and is a mandatory reporting state, meaning that if they got a report of an alleged, meaning we think it might have happened, pre-investigation, their own investigation, like their book says that they're supposed to do, just at that point, before they do their in-house investigation, that's the time that they need to report it. Now, I have heard that there's been a few elders that have gone to, say, maybe a payphone or something and reported it and remained anonymous. And you know what? If you've done that, good for you. But listen, elders, these men were thrown under the bus, and the organization did not have to be accountable in any manner. And this is how they're instructed to handle allegations, is to keep it quiet and to not say anything. And unfortunately, for this person, she had 10 more years of being raped by this man. Okay? Now, what I've read also, too, is that at age 18, she came back and said, he's still doing it. You know, this is still happening. Some articles I've read have said, well, then all of a sudden the elders, or one of the elders, took her down to the police station to make a report. I'm not sure if I believe that, but maybe they did. I don't know why, but I just look at that as kind of a covering the organization's hiney on this one. It doesn't seem consistent with everything else. But anyways, these people, these two men who were elderly, did get sentenced. And their sentence was not like they have to go to prison. They don't. They don't have to go to prison, okay? And what they are having to do is pay a fine of money, okay? And do so many hours of community service. So they're being accountable. They're being held accountable, but what they were given was not really super, terrible. And I'm really glad to hear that, because I wouldn't want these elders to have to be in prison. They would be victims very quickly. And what they did was follow the directions of the governing body. One of the articles that I had read, the judge was just like, it is absolutely ridiculous to not, the way that they were going about it. Let me see if I can find it. I'm opening up to all of these different articles. Let's see here. I know that in the article that I saw, it was done in bold. It was bold and black, so I probably should be better organized than this, but I'm just not. Church elders seek new trial. Oh, that's right. One of them wanted to request a new trial. The judge declined that. They're like, no, you don't get a new trial. So that seemed like another stall. And again, remember, this has been going on for 2 years already, okay? Let's see here. Okay, now I opened up the one that has them all. Okay, so let me look at this one first. And this is from Illinois News. Judge allows testimony of elders of Jehovah's Witnesses about child abuse. This was dated March 11th, 2022. And what I'm looking for is kind of the boldness of when the judge was talking. Let's see here. This does say the perpetrator's name. And his name is Arturo Hernandez Pedraza. And he did confess, okay? And he is 44 years old. And he's already in prison, which is a really good thing to hear because of just how vile and horrifying he was. Now, I believe it was Pincava. Not only was he an elder, but he was also a school teacher, elementary school, for an elementary school. So he has received training on what it means to be a mandatory reporter. So even though what he was getting was different directions when he called the organization, he also was trained on how he was supposed to handle things if he had any suspicion of neglect of a child or abuse of a child. He also wrote for a column, a local column. So, in my opinion, he was worldly enough, okay, to know better. That's really where I'm going with this. Meaning, the only info he was receiving was not simply from the governing body and from the Shepherd of the Flock book. I think that Elders get to see this now and to see that they too can be held accountable. And I don't think the organization cares whether you are going to be held accountable or not. Okay. I watched an elder be thrown under the bus for the Montana case. Okay, he did exactly as the shepherd of the flock book told him to do. Okay, but then when the lawyer for the Watchtower gets up, the lawyer said, "Oh, but he could go by his own conscience." Really? No. If he went by his own conscience, he would lose his position as an elder. And I do believe that these elders believe that they're getting the right direction. And I just want to say, please double check. Yes, hear what they have to say, get their name, okay? And then look it up yourself, because the judge is going to be judging you to be responsible for your own actions, not on what somebody else directed you to do, okay? This is very important. This is not going to be the first time that we see this. And I really hope that elders look at that and realize that they're not going to be protected. They're not going to have your back, okay? They're not. They're going to have their own back, okay? When it comes to the organization and the leadership, it's a different realm, okay? I know that there's wonderful elders out there, and I know that there's wonderful Jehovah's Witnesses out there, but because of the secrecy of this organization, people that are criminals have come to know that when they want to go onto the down low, if they want to just function in life after they get out of prison on the down low and be kind of like not findable, this organization is a great place to be. I've read articles confirming it, okay? And they know that they have clergy that won't report it, okay? Listen, if we want to make sure that the organization looks good, that's fine. But you can only be responsible for so much. In other words, this teaching that the leadership has given to the members is that they are responsible for the reputation of the organization. They're responsible for the reputation of Jehovah himself. Now, I have friends, and I have good friends, but it is not my responsibility to make sure that their reputation remains clean. It's actually their responsibility to make sure that their reputation is clean. Now, if I get asked to come into court and to testify that they are a person of integrity and stuff, sure, I'd be happy to do that. If I know them well enough, I'd be happy to do that. But it is not a situation to where every single action I take that I have to think, is this going to make my friend look bad? Is this action going to make, take Jehovah's name and run it through the mud? Jehovah's a big God, okay? He can take care of himself, and he can actually make sure his own reputation is clean. I believe that this is an unfair burden that they have put on the members, and it is not being used correctly. I believe it's being used to manipulate the behavior of their members. Example, you've probably been at different talks or read things in different books where, the behavior that's pleasing to Jehovah is this, and if you do this other behavior, it's displeasing Jehovah. So we also are responsible for his feelings, whether he's happy or sad. Like our behavior affects him. that shouldn't be this way at all. You know, his behavior should affect him. That would be God being responsible for God. And my friend's behavior, her actions would be affecting her, not necessarily mine, unless we were hanging out together. You know, sure, she might give me some crap if I was stepping out of line and acting ridiculous. She could give me some crap because she knows me enough to say, girl, we're out of line, okay? And then I would need to straighten up and tell her thank you, okay? But I'm not responsible for her reputation, and she's not responsible for mine. So please keep that in mind. I believe that these are tactics that are used by the leadership of the organization to determine or to discourage certain kinds of behavior by their members. Because if you can say that's going to make Jehovah look bad if you do this, that, and the other, something you want to do, that would encourage you to not do that certain behavior, okay? And it's used all the time within the organization, this kind of rhetoric. What I've heard often is for people that have been victims, or their parents, or the parents of victims, have been told something to the effect of, you do have the right to go to the police. This is after they've reported an allegation that they've been violated by somebody else, usually in the congregation, okay? They'll tell them something to the effect of, you do have the right to take this to the police. But it will also be added on how that's going to drag Jehovah's name through the mud, okay? So that gives members hesitation to not report to the secular authorities. And our elders for congregations have not been trained to do investigations or to do what needs to be done with victims of this crime, nor what to be done with alleged perpetrators. So there's actually people out there that have been trained for those areas. Now I'm a hairdresser. And if I had started a cult and expected, I had some people under me to take care of my church, I'm a hairdresser. I've been trained as a hairdresser. If I expected them to do hair without training them, why is it supposed to come out right? I mean, they have to be educated. They can't just give people haircuts if they don't know how, or if they have not been trained how. Sure, I could give them a book. It would show them all the different sections that they need to take and how they're supposed to cut over the fingers, not under the fingers. Maybe if they read it and tried it a few times, they'd probably get better at it, and make sure that, I could have paperwork for them to fill it out, and then they'd send it to me, and I'd have I would have it filed here and everything. And then if I told them that they shouldn't let anybody else read these things, it's actually against the law to to work or to be in a position of a hairdresser if you don't have a license. So I'm asking them to do something very unrealistic. Okay, so I'm just giving an example, and that's what the governing body has done. They've asked the elders to do something unrealistic, and they have not prepared them for these positions. Okay, they let them know that they'll have their back, but they don't have their back. And I know that this is a time where, because of this pandemic over the last 2 years, people have been doing more questioning. People have been taking the time that they didn't much have when things were going faster in life, and they've done some reflecting and some testing out on some of the doctrines and stuff. And many people have chosen that, they've realized that they don't believe in in the teachings, okay? And if you do, I can respect that, okay? And I'm not about tearing down their teachings so much as I am about making people aware of the tactics that they use, the techniques and tactics that this organization uses to get them to believe in the doctrines that they have, okay? Because it's coercion, it's manipulation, all right? They're using techniques that are tried and true of undue influence, which is where you're being persuaded in such a way to where you're made to believe that you probably wouldn't make as good of a choice as they would. So basically, it's kind of like, don't worry your pretty little head, we got this, is pretty much that message, which makes me think about gaslighting. Okay, gaslighting is when someone does things to where you would be convinced that your decision-making skills are not as good as theirs, okay? So much so that you would actually allow their decision-making skills to take precedence over yours, that you would actually trust them. And there was a movie called Gaslight, and it's about, there was actually lights, the lighting that they had was actually gas propelled. So what ended up happening in the movie was this couple ended up getting married, and she would notice that the lights that were like on a chandelier above her bed and stuff, they would kind of dim a little bit, right? And so she would ask somebody else in the house, did you see that? Did you see that the lights dimmed? And they had a maid, and they're like, no, they didn't notice them. So she ended up asking her husband, and her husband said, no, that didn't happen. But in actuality, what he was doing was looking for things in the attic. And when he did go up there to look for things in the attic, that's what affected the gas lights to dimmer. That's why they did dimmer. But what he did was set things up in such a way that would make her think that she didn't think well enough herself and that she was losing her mind. So he would give her a certain pen to wear and stuff, and then later on he would take it and move it. And when she came to him and said, have you seen the pen that you gave me? He would say, I haven't seen it. And then so he would hide it. And so he was questioning her sanity. So what happens in the beginning of becoming recruited in the organization is you're told that the heart is treacherous, and the ways that seem right to man leads to death. So, and a few other things, okay, that are basically scripture taken out of context, okay? But it all equals you as a person are not as reliable as the organization as a whole is regarding the decisions that you need to make, because it's all about making the right decisions that please Jehovah, okay? So once they can, convince you by telling you things like Jehovah's always had an organization, and by the way, this is the organization he's using today, which, by the way, the Mormons do the same thing. God's always used prophets, and by the way, we're the prophets that he's using today. So it's along the very same lines. And they talk as though God chose them out of every single organization, every single church on this earth, that God chose them. Why? Because they were so upstanding. Mind you, this was in 1919, just after Rutherford got out of prison, okay, for sedition, okay? So if that was upstanding, I don't know. But still, I love Watchtower history. But still, what ends up happening is they gaslight these people that they want to recruit to come to a place of relying on the organization more so than relying on their own decision-making skills. So after a while, the more that they look upon the literature and the interpretations of scriptures that the governing body has stated. So let me make this clear. You cannot open up your Bible, read it, and just come up with like maybe what it says. Yes, you speak a certain language, and yes, your Bible is written in that language. You're not supposed to just assume you understand it. You have to get the governing body's definition of what each scripture means. Okay, so you don't get to it's just like, so you have to receive what the governing body says as far as what the interpretation of scripture, and then lifestyle choices, or how people should act, how they should behave. Another thing is this going out door to door thing. It is mandatory, absolutely mandatory. The organization calls it a what do they call it? They don't say it's mandatory. They use another term for it. It's going to come to me in a few minutes, but a commission, I think, meaning it was like this thing God said that everybody's supposed to do, and that's based from Matthew 24:14. This good news of the kingdom will be preached in all the inhabited earth, and then the end will come. So as Jehovah's representatives, okay, we are to take part in sharing this gospel. And what is the gospel? It's not about Jesus God made sure that Jesus died and his blood actually washed away our sins. No, it's not like that. It's come join this religion because this is the organization God chose to be his, to have his true followers, to have these are the true ones, whereas anybody else from any other church is not a true follower. Looks like Rick is coming in. So these are all different ways that the organization takes away, little by little, the way you're supposed to think, and gives you a new way of thinking. And what is that new way? The way the organization has told us to think. Okay? And as time goes by, especially near the beginning, people are told that when they first start a study, right, that family members and friends are not going to like hearing that you're studying with Jehovah's Witnesses. So that actually happens, right? So when somebody who starts a study with Jehovah's Witnesses, when they tell their family and stuff, the family ends up being very concerned, or their friends will be very concerned, and they're like, "Are you kidding me? It's a cult," because they just know it is, or they're more aware of that it is. Okay, which probably offends the new convert. And if they go back and tell their Bible study conductor that this is a situation that happened, the Bible study conductor is just going to say, "See, that just confirms that, they're going to call it persecution, that Jesus was persecuted too, and that we're going to get persecuted for his name." So after a while, it's suggested that you not associate with certain people that are not Jehovah's Witnesses because they are declared bad associations. So they also get you to do more things for the org. So you're going out in service more, you're going to more meetings, your life is what it used to be, but then you've added on more commitments, okay? So the doctrine of not celebrating holidays, and when someone is taught that it has pagan origins, which they do have pagan origins, their Bible study conductor would tell them things like, "Do you really want to be involved with something that has pagan origins?" And it's suggested that no, you don't, right? So when somebody starts studying and they don't go to the holidays anymore that they used to, family gatherings, they're actually taking themselves away from their family, and it upsets family members. So then they're getting reactions from family members that are very upset. They mentioned that to their Bible study conductor. Well, that's just more persecution. Okay. So, after a while, they're not associating with any of the friends that they had, nor their family members, if they're not Jehovah's Witnesses, because that's really what's encouraged, is to only associate with Jehovah's Witnesses and to really not have friends that are not Jehovah's Witnesses. So that's an isolation process. So where I'm going with this is that's the kind of things that I'm against, these techniques and tactics, okay? Whether people believe that Jesus is Michael the Archangel or not, there's other people that, you can talk to about that, but it does fall under freedom of religion, okay? So you are entitled to believe that. But what else falls under freedom of religion is, and this is called Article 18. I'm going to look it up here under my pictures, because that's what I got my phone here for, because I just want to read it out to you. It's very, very, actually, it's very liberating. And what I'm talking about is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I've opened up the wrong folder. So I'm going to slide down here and find it. So I'm not seeing that folder. So what I'm going to do now is Google it. Yes. Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay. So it's just that easy to find out your human rights. I'm going to go to images because I know what it already looks like. And by the way, this was something Eleanor Roosevelt was very, very involved in. And it was actually shown in our wakes that she was, so the organization has educated us on this. Okay, this is the one I wanted to look up. And I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to go to Article 18, which is the Freedom of Religion article. And that's the one that the organization will often go to courts with and use and demand that they have these rights, these freedom of religion rights. And they deserve that, okay? But I also want you to know that you deserve the rights of freedom of religion as well. So this is Article 18. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others, and in public or private to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. I'm not sure if you heard the part where it said freedom to change his religion. The organization doesn't give us that freedom. And under Article 18, under freedom of religion, you are entitled to change your religion or to not be a believer at all. You are entitled to change your mind. That falls under Article 18 from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So any of you that are considered leaving the organization and concerned about what's going to happen after you go back to the Kingdom Halls April 1st, 2022. Please keep this in mind, that you are entitled to the freedom of religion, of changing your mind and believing something else, just as much as the organization and the leadership is when they go to courts and demand their freedom of religion from the secular courts. So if you have a judicial committee meeting and they question you on it, maybe you could bring it up. I don't know how well it's going to go, but you do have the right to be an apostate, okay? That's also involved in Article 18. So I am at the 50-minute points, and I was going to open up for calls and see if anybody wanted to chime in and offer some suggestions, or if they have a comment they want to make or a question they want to ask me, they can push *6. And I believe Rick has it set up to where I would be able to hear you and your question. And if somebody could just come on and say onto the phone line, the number is 727-731-6701. You can call in and dial *6, and that opens it up to where you can ask me questions. I think our Rick is right there in the room. I tell you what, he's been going since 4 a.m. So there's that. Maybe I can go to, I think what I'm going to do is go to YouTube and just look at the chat. But if you are on the phone and listening tonight, if you could look at the chat. Okay, I got to take the sound down. So we've got 16 people in the chat. Hello, everybody. Woo! Look at you guys. Please be sure and give it a thumbs up. There's 10 thumbs up. Thank you. But this is actually going to help it to get circulated more. So if you have any questions, Linda, I never thought of it that way. And probably most Jehovah's Witnesses can take themselves always inculcated to shut up and not make Jehovah's organization look bad. Yes, Donna, you're right. Yes. Oh, look. Hi, Linda. Hello, Bob. And let's see here. Who's all here? So cool to see you guys here. When my JW husband, who is son of the CBOE, did wrong, they did not follow the Shepherd of the Flock book. But I never knew it because I didn't know it existed until much later. Yes, we women especially. Most of us don't even know it exists. And by the way, we're not even supposed to touch it. Okay? So that's what she's talking about, is the Elder's Manual. And when they do go for training, what they're doing is they're being trained on how to use the Shepherd of the Flock book, or AKA the Elder's Manual. And that's what gives them the instructions to call the org when they hear allegations. So yeah, I'll tell you what. There's so much secrecy. And the higher up people go in this organization, the more secrecy is there. And that's how hierarchies work. The higher up in the echelons, so it's kind of like a pyramid, okay? Most of the members are down here at the bottom of this pyramid. And then the more you go up, the less members are there. The more you go up, the less members are there. So with each level, you get informed of more secrecy and secrecy and secrecy. Now, after spending all that time, if you're hearing things that are unethical, you might recognize it as unethical, or you might not recognize it as unethical because you're used to the organization telling you what's right and what's wrong. And there's this thing called sunk fallacy, where you've invested so much, it's hard to walk away from it once you realize that you've gotten yourself into a really bad situation, or you realize this ain't the best, this is not kosher. I don't think I'm agreeing with this one or this teaching, but everything else you've invested in it, it really keeps you more committed to what you've invested so much into, if that makes sense. Let's see here. So I'm going to read Bob Roberts' comment. When they say you can go to the police, it's always accompanied with a bunch of scriptures about why it's bad to take a brother to court. That's true. I didn't bring that up. Thank you. You shouldn't take your brother to court. That's so true. Making it seem like it's a human thing to want to go to the police. But scripturally, it's a bad thing to take the brothers to court. Okay. You know, basically that rule is try to work it out amongst yourselves. Something that you got going on, a business deal or something. And if you can't work it out amongst yourselves, maybe you can get somebody to kind of do some intercessory stuff and, help you get through it, help you talk it through, and try to do those things first before you do take a brother to court. Okay? But it's normal to be in disagreements. It's normal to have disagreements with people. Okay? But what's not normal is getting away with crimes. Okay? They used to actually call CSA sin, just simply sin, when it's an actual crime. They're now really getting better at that. Let's see here. E. Smith. I think in programming, the bit about calling elders is called an embedded protocol. Think like a spy that doesn't get orders until he opens an envelope. Okay, it's like you don't know what the next thing is you're supposed to do until you open the envelope. I think that's what he or she is talking about. What I've also come to realize is that when you do call when an elder does call headquarters and talks to the legal department, then they have this thing going on where it's like as though the legal department represents them, so they don't have to talk about it. Lawyer-client privilege, the people over at headquarters don't have to talk about it. Whatever you took to them, they don't have to reveal it, because it's as though they are your lawyer. Okay, see how that works? And and then you at your Kingdom Hall, you've been told that you have clergy tenant privilege, and you don't have to report it. That's what they told you. And that, whether it be correct or not, that's a big stall in reporting this crime. And if they can convince members that it's ungodly or it's unscriptural, it really does stall them. So they're actually being manipulated from the top. Okay? And as they're following directions, they're covering their own ass. Okay? They're covering their own behind. That's what's going on. So please know this. Okay?
Hello, Linda.
Hi. Hi, who's this?
Hi, hon. It's Constance. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you, love?
Good. Good, honey. I'm really enjoying your show. Generally, I don't listen in, but it is a great show. So thank you so much. I just wanted to say, honey, that you brought up something very interesting. You had mentioned that of those two elders who were in Illinois,
Mm-hmm.
one of them was an elementary school teacher.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
I have been a teacher myself, and also a social worker as well. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're in those professions, it's required by law that when you see any kind of abuse for a child or an adult, you have to report it, but primarily for children because they're minors. But anyway, so, you're a mandate reporter is my point. Well, I did not know that one elder had been a teacher. So that was
Yes.
very interesting. So the point, honey, I wanted to make is he knew as a teacher himself that it was the law that he had to be a mandate reporter. His job was
Yes.
on the line as far as an educator is concerned, okay? But now
Yes.
when it comes to Watchtower, because it was the state of Illinois, and he's an elder, so he's in a position of power in the congregation.
Yes.
He knew in his own mind as a human being that he was in a position to be able to protect this child. But instead, this is where the indoctrination is so deep.
Yes.
He was, Linda, I'm telling you, honey, he was walking a fine line on this one.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
when whoever called Watchtower, okay, and whoever the person was that gave him the wrong information, it comes down to this. Had he been in a position as an educator and did not report it, he could have lost his job as a teacher. Okay. Now, these two elders, they got a little slap on the wrist for
Yes.
not reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's a little slap on the wrist, community service, a little bit of a fine.
Right. Right.
Okay. Had it been a felony, he could have lost his teaching position as an elementary school teacher.
Okay.
A very, very fine line on this one. So I find that, honey, very, very
Okay.
you brought that up. And let me tell you, he was sweating bullets on that one. Okay, because if he went to prison, there went his teaching career right there. So I just wanted to share that with you, honey, tonight. Great conversation tonight. Really,
Cool.
really. And I appreciate your insight, honey, on the gaslighting, because, that's exactly what Watchtower does, and it's so subtle. And sometimes it's so beneficial. Well, not sometimes. A lot of times it's very beneficial to explain exactly what gaslighting is and how Watchtower uses that and has used that upon, many of us when we were in the organization. So
Yes.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Constance. I appreciate what you had to say. I believe it's something that shows up like within the first 6 weeks of your free Bible study. You're literally being taken step by step to trust yourself less and to trust this group more, little by little by little by little. So the end result of any cult, and cult comes from the word culture, any kind of a culture that's authoritarian, that's, that has a dictatorship, that's a very regime-like, very high demand, high control, a ton of rules, okay? And that you can't follow, and so you always feel so horrible because you can't follow all the rules, and you just know all the time you're not pleasing God because you haven't lived up to this standard that this group has told you must live up to get the approval of the leadership or of God, okay? That is defined as toxic, okay? If you had to deal with that in a partner that you worked with or a partner that you were in an intimate relationship with, it's easier to see it as toxic, isn't it? So you can view it from a spiritual group or even a bowling group, okay? When you're being treated in such a manner to where you are always being reminded that you are not good enough, and that your personality and your identity should be dismissed, and that you should put on another one, because that's what's going to please the leadership or the God of that group. You're not going to be able to do it. You're just not going to be able to fulfill this idea of pleasing this God or this group leader, because you're putting on, it's as though you're putting on shoes that do not fit you. Okay? If you remember the Cinderella show, the Cinderella story, there was a shoe that showed back up that the prince wanted to use to find Cinderella, and the sisters that she had tried them on so that they could end up being with the prince. Okay? Well, they didn't fit in the shoes, so therefore they couldn't walk in them. And when Cinderella finally showed up and tried her foot into the shoe, it fit, because it was her shoe. Okay? If you put on somebody else's shoes and they don't fit you, you're going to have agony. If they're too tight, you're going to have pain. If they're too large, you're going to get blisters. You don't want to do that. You don't want to get rid of your own personality to be a personality other than who you are. So that's one of the big things that is a sign of a toxic, dangerous cult group. Okay, so again, the word cult comes from culture. So there's all kinds of cultures. There's different churches, there are different bowling teams, there's different, places that are okay, that build you up, that promote your advancing your own personality and uses things that you're good at. Those are more suitable to be involved in, But when you're involved in something that really reminds you of how you're just not good enough, and by the way, you take pride in being a slave, you might be in a cult. Okay. About a couple of years ago, I was talking with a roommate of mine. I was thinking, I need to come up with these statements that says, if your church says this, that, or the other, you might be in a cult. So I finally had the chance to do it. Oh, that was funny. So is there anybody else that wants to chime in and push *6 or add to what I had to say or ask me anything? I did forget to say what tonight's get. I'm so bad at not time stamping. Okay. Tonight is Saturday, March 26th, 2022. And we are at this place where people that are Jehovah's Witnesses are going to start going back to the Kingdom Hall starting April 1st. And I love that Anne-Marie earlier brought up the question, has anybody ever noticed that the organization has a thing about April 1st? It took everything I had not to say anything. But yeah, there's a few things that are specific doctrines that are in certain watchtowers or awakes that are, that are defining doctrines of the organization will be in April 1st, whatever year, watchtower or awake. And there's a few other things that have been associated with April 1st. And April 1st is a holiday called April Fools. So basically, the way to celebrate April Fools is to try to trick a friend of yours and to make them out to be a fool. Okay? Now, could the organization be attempting to make us out to be a fool? Something to think about, okay? Something to think about. Because I do believe that all the work that members do because they love God ends up benefiting the leadership, ends up going towards the properties that the organization holds and what is making their portfolio. who's the fool? Who is the fool? Because the organization has the money. There was a time when congregations owned their own Kingdom Hall because they paid for it over time. And what the leadership did was another form of trickery and deception to get them to sign over the property to the leadership of the organization. Wow, now they own property that they never paid for off of the backs of their members. So who's really the fool? They're playing us for a fool. You see what I'm saying? Back in the day when we would go door to door with our watchtowers and awakes and our books and such, there was a time when we asked for it in the manner of saying it costs so much, but then it changed to where we receive contributions, okay? And what we said was pretty much the same thing as we said when we charged for the Watchtower and Awake. And what we said was it's a dime or a quarter or whatever the price was at the time. And we accompanied that with, and the amount cost is only for the making of the watchtowers and the shipping. So that's all it cost. Like, that's all you're paying for, right? But in actuality, the organization made their money off of the members to begin with. That's before we ever took it out to give to the territory, okay? So the members in the Kingdom Halls would buy a Watchtower and Awake, or get them for, a stack of them for when they went out in service. And plus everybody in the household that they had, they all got a subscription, right? But in actuality, the Watchtower and Awake, the cost was simply a matter of pennies to print them up and to send them out. So, if you put it all together, maybe it was the amount of a nickel, okay? And then one Watchtower was 25 cents and one Awake is 25 cents. So the real price was more like a Watchtower and Awake together was like a nickel and a nickel. So you had 10 cents, but then there was 40 cents above that was profit that the organization made. And they got them from, that profit came from the members before we ever took it out to society at large to preach the good news of the kingdom. Okay, so they were playing us out to be a fool, okay? Because we believed that quarter was the amount of printing and shipping. We were told that. That's what we told people at the door. But in actuality, that is not what was happening. Oh, somebody in the room, Donna, says, hey, Linda, April 1st is my birthday. Woohoo! That is so funny. That is so cool. So it's coming up, so we get to sing happy birthday to you. I'll tell you what, we apostates can sing happy birthday like it's something you've never heard before. It's pretty out of key and off to, and timing too, I'll tell you what.
Hey, Linda.
Hi, who's this?
Hey, Linda, guess who this is?
Guess who this is?
Yes, from the sound of my voice.
Oh my goodness, it's my favoriteest.
Yeah.
My favorite. See, this guy is the one you need to get for governing body member, because he would not screw us over like the other ones would, because I don't care what you say, Gigi. I might disagree with you, but I will always vote you to be governing body. Yes.
Yeah, it's Gigi for GB, and that's, it's good that you disagree with me, because if I thought like you and you thought like me, then that's not how the world is supposed to work. We're supposed to think differently. That's
exactly.
What's beautiful,
And that's actually a sign of healing. That's actually a sign of healing.
Yeah.
That we're not Still in groupthink, right? On the same page.
You know, yeah, I just like, I just, it blows my mind when people like, I hear them in comments or when they talk to me, and I'm like, and I think I hear them talk like if we're supposed to agree, you know, it's like, did you not learn anything by leaving Watchtower? It's a beautiful thing that we don't, you know, we disagree. It's a beautiful thing that we fight. You know, back in the days, you know, when we were younger, men and women would fight, but then at the end of the day, you know, you go do, you know, guys would go drink and eat or whatever. Women do the same thing, and you're friends. But you know,
Yes,
that's part of growing up. You know, remember in high school, you know, you used to get, sometimes your best friends were the ones that you got into real fights with, and sometimes we need to disagree. We need to fight. You know, not physically, but you know, or maybe even physically.
you know,
I remember that friend in school. We fought.
what I learned from my son, watching my son grow up with his buddies, is that they loved to debate. They love to debate, and having a healthy debate is a good thing. So, you know, yes, fighting can happen, but we can also have a healthy debate where we're actually listening to each other's side and then saying, well, I can't accept that because of this. So it's really a respect thing. So debates are, which is never anything that could happen in the org, you know?
That's right. Hey, I wanted to talk to you about April 1st. My brother and I want to talk about this tomorrow, but you know, the one thing I think we're going to title the video on April 1st, the apostates win. You know, we win over the because what happens is this. In politics, one thing that they do in politics in the United States is they lie so much, and then tomorrow they do another lie, and then the next day they do another lie. Well, they're lying so much that by the time you try to address one of the lies, they're like 50, 60 lies.
Right? Thank you.
And you're like,
we're head spinning.
Oh, they're winning. Yeah. And so, no. We're not going to play this game that Watchtower is opening back up on April 1st. No. Stephen Lett said that coronavirus was a sign of the times, right? And this was the end of the end. This is 1975 again with Stephen Lett.
Right?
No,
yes, it is.
So when April 1st comes and they go to the meeting, that means that their Armageddon prediction didn't come true. You see,
they really did. They really were implying that this was a sign of the Great Tribulation. It was, wasn't it?
The pestilence. The pestilence.
It was
the pestilence.
COVID-19.
Pestilence. Remember the Revelation and this
yes.
was the end of the last days of the last days of the last days. So no, you know, they're trying to do April 1st as a reset. And right about April 1st and that it's the American religion and there's no such thing as coincidences and it's April Fool's Day. We all know that. And I agree with everything everybody says. But no, we're not going to let what Stephen Lett says go. You know, we're not going to. Stephen Lett made a prediction like 1975. The governing body let him get away with it. He put it on JW Broadcasting, and he said that you know, COVID-19 it's pestilence, and we're living in the last days of the last days. And now they're opening up, and they're going to pretend like that never happened. No,
right. Now, wasn't Morris? Didn't Morris say, "I wasn't shocked. I wasn't shocked. We've been waiting for this." And wasn't that an implication of, you know, the same thing Lett was saying? We're just that much closer to the end happening, right? Do you remember that?
And listen, yeah, and both. I'll give you an example. In politics, both left Democrats and Republicans do the same thing. I'll give you an example. The Democrats have a thing called MoveOn.org. No, we can't move on when you're lying to me. So they go, no, we need to move on. No. We know.
Yeah.
Because you don't want us to. And then I'll give you an example. Like another one on the Republican side, Lindsey Graham is always saying, we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we're going to have meetings. And then like a year go by, you're like, hey, when did you have those meetings? They never have those meetings, but they always say,
right,
we're going to the bottom of this, and we're going to do this. And it's like, do you think that we're stupid? Do you think that we forget? And they do. They actually think that you're stupid because
they do.
Another lie and another lie and another lie. We're way ahead of you. But guess what? There's a thing called high-speed internet, so we're able to catch
right. Right.
Whereas before it was a little bit harder. So that's one thing.
We got this stuff in our hands all the time.
Yes. Yeah. So April 1st is going to be a blessing because you're going to be able to point on April 1st and say, no, you guys have changed the goalpost again, and this is what Stephen says, and you can't justify it. You can't say, oh well, no, there's no oh well. You lied. It was another failed prophecy amongst many. You know how all those great videos that you see about 1870s. 1874 and 1914 and 19. Well, guess what? 2022 is just another one, just another notch on the thing, And we have it on tape, we have it on video, Stephen Lance. So I'm really looking forward to the April 1st.
Hello, Linda.
Hi.
Linda, yes.
I'll let you go, Linda. I'll let you go. Good night.
Don't go.
everybody.
Don't go. No. Don't go. Don't go.
No?
Don't go.
You can stick around. But
No.
yes, I totally agree with you, Gilbert.
I wanted to ask
Is
you-
this Brian?
Yeah, it is.
Hi, Brian.
We're here trying to call in, and then I realized when I was arguing with Reese that Rick muted me. I can put a knock on the wall. I got muted by Rick. Yay!
Honey, let me just tell you something. I was like plugging my phone in. I had myself ready to talk, and all of a sudden I heard mute. So I got muted too, sweetie.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah.
Not so much that I was going to come in and say, yes, you go down the middle. I was going to be like, look, dude, I don't like that you call people, you use the term Jehovah's Witness as a slur. That's what I was going to say to him, because he does this thing where he will say, you're acting like a Jehovah's Witness, and it's not a compliment. Okay. So that's what I was going to contribute, but I got the mute too.
We do, those of us who have been witnesses. I kind of don't think that applies to me, but maybe it does in some cases, so let him. But the point was, my point with him was that, you know what I'm like, Linda. I you give me some proof, but
I was going to say, you're my middleman, dude. I mean, seriously, you have been with me. We have talked politics many times. I've learned from you. I've learned from Gilbert. And the things that I get to contribute, I take what you like and leave the rest. However it goes into your soul. But calling you names to get you to believe how somebody else has informed you it should be is just, I need to shut up now.
Reese has gone pretty Catholic. And I'm not anti-Catholic anymore. Believe me. My son is converted to Rome. I don't view Catholics in a bad light at all. I'm sure there's things that they screw up on, but I consider them my Christian brethren. And the Orthodox over in Ukraine and Russia, I consider them my brethren. I doubt whether they would consider me such, but we'll let Christ sort that out when he does return. And but Reese takes, like, some of his stuff is really interesting, and that's why I tune in.
Very.
It's kind of controversial, so it's kind of fun to. It's
yes.
Sort of fun and it's got a spooky nature to it, and all that stuff. That's why.
And don't get me wrong, I've got respect for Reese and his style and what he brings to the table. That was just one of my little pet peeves. I was getting ready to come in and go, don't use the term Jehovah's Witness as a slur, which is my opinion and might not even been his intention, but that's how I heard it. Well, so maybe it was a good thing I got muted, right?
Yeah, he wasn't really addressing my point. My point is that maybe there is fake news, but believe me, it can be done on both sides. Like, that's a fact. And him and I, sitting over here in North America, we do not know, unless we've seen it with our own eyes, that the same thing that we might level at the mainstream media. And I'm no fan of theirs. You gotta be careful. All the things that they say, there's all kinds of crap.
Right.
But people on the other side of the political spectrum do it as well. they say things like I watch lots of Fox News, but I don't really like Hannity because he says stuff. He just repeats the same thing over and over every night. And there are times when the evidence is completely contrary to what he's saying. There were things during the Trump administration where he just went along to get along. And, you know, but I mean, he's opinion. He wasn't news. He's not news. Like Sean Hannity's show is not a news show. It's an opinion show. Same with Tucker and Tucker Carlson. Tucker is like he's on the I love Putin bandwagon. Well, he's not really, but I mean he's I think the world is driving Tucker Carlson nuts. I really kind
maybe so, yeah.
The deep end, because he's like the people on the left wing who hate him. They harass him. They come to his house. They
really?
Twitter mob.
Not good.
But anyway, I did want to ask your pal that was just here. What's your name?
He is Gilbert Gonzalez.
The gentleman that was talking. Gilbert Gonzalez. Okay, Gilbert. So Gilbert, are you still there?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious where you're coming from. Are you a Christian? Like, do you believe in the Bible and all that, or are you like? I assume you're an ex-JW. Do you believe in the Bible still, or where have you gone since then?
Yeah, I think
this isn't a criticism or anything. I'm just trying to understand who you are.
Oh no, well, first of all, I'm the only Jehovah's Witness who has ever ran a successful campaign for governing body to be elected by its members. But that's number one. And number two,
yes.
God, and of course I believe in God, of course I believe in Jesus. But I think I've talked to Apostle Linda James about this, and one thing I've learned is that one of the greatest things I've learned about being leading the Jehovah's Witnesses is and hurting people. Now I understand how I hurt people. But
me too.
I read the Bible now, and I look at religion. I look at it like let me put it this way. This is what I preach all the time to everybody, even on my videos. Accept your birthright. God is your father. You're his son. God is your father. You're his daughter. And don't let anybody get in between you and your father. So one thing I've learned is all of the problems in the world are when we don't mind our own business and we get them in other people's business. In the very beginning, Cain killed his brother Abel because he wasn't minding his business. And all of the problems we have in religion and with Bible and everything is because we're always trying to impose our Bible beliefs or our other beliefs on other people. So when I read the Bible now, I read it about how it affects me personally. I don't read the Bible thinking how I can go and tell Linda James how she needs to change her life. I don't read it that way. No, I don't look at the Bible or religion like that no more. I always look at it more just personally. And you know what? It's really
okay.
Better because I don't worry what other people do. I worry about what I do and how I could be a better example or be I can help people. And that's really helped me. Leading the Jehovah's Witness really helped me because being a Jehovah's Witness, I was always reading the Bible or always looking at the straw in other people's eyes when I wasn't looking at my own errors. And so, do I believe in God?
Yeah, they cultivate that attitude. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let me back up.
Let me
back up. Let me ask you something else, though, because I guess I haven't been listening to Linda's show enough. What's this about running a campaign to be on the governing body? Tell me about that. This sounds pretty far out.
No, that's a long time.
How would you do that? Or is this tongue in cheek?
No, we already did it. This was a 2020. It dates us, Linda James. Remember, this was 2015, 2016.
So this is his like
Yeah.
So I say that I'm apostate babe Linda James. I say I'm your favorite apostate. He says that to vote for him for governing body. So it's kind of his thing, part of his social media.
No real campaign or something.
Not a real one.
Something like that, or.
But he's got cards and everything. So and I always tell him I'm going to vote for him because I think he would make a better governing body member. Plus, I do believe he's probably anointed. So hey, you know.
Yeah, we made apostasy fun. You know, back in the day, I remember women would write letters to Watchtower. They would print up the ballots on the computer and they would send it in, and there was a kick. You know, imagine being in the mail room and you're getting all of these ballots. It was fun, you know, but it was basically like it's like the rock song. Remember, we're not going to take it. We're not going to take it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know. Okay. And it's called excellence and apostasy. It's called having fun, and that's one thing I've noticed that Apostasy and James, that a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses they don't have a great sense of humor, and I wonder if it's because of the JW thing. It's like what happened to our sense of humor? And you know, the other thing too is one of the reasons I did this. I ran for governing body, and it was Neil, the great apostate. He talked about this.
Okay.
And, he said how when you make fun of a leader, and this is what Saturday Night Live tries to do, they try to make fun of Donald Trump or another president, and because if you can successfully make a laughing stock out of, say, Dan Quayle, vice president, well, guess what? He couldn't run for president, right? Because you successfully laughed at him to the point where it tilted the scales. And I guess there was a couple of leaders in over there in Europe, you know, communist leaders, that they became laughing stock, and then they immediately fell from power. Well, that's the same thing with the governing body. You have to be a laughing stock, and the more you laugh at them, the less power they have.
Yes. Yes.
And, so Stephen Lett is the greatest gift the governing body has given us.
I think so.
It's done more. It's done more to the apostate movement than any apostate. Yeah.
It's like, really, we're going to show this guy on film? This is our leader. It's like, oh my God. And wow. Yeah. I think people become hypnotized with this over pronunciation of how he speaks. I think it's a hypnotizing technique. That's my theory.
He's Marshall Applewhite's second
doubleganger or doppelganger. Yeah.
Remember Marshall Applewhite? He was the crazy guy of Heaven's Gate.
Yes.
You ever seen his picture?
Yes, I have, and I've seen the pictures put next to each other of Stephen Lett and Apple. Great resemblance, actually. Yeah, all those pale blonde, you know, gray-haired old men look alike.
You know, you got to remember that when apostasy is not fun, you got to stop and take a break. If you're not having fun being an apostate, you need to stop and you need to just chill out, take a breather.
Take a break. Yes,
it has to be fun. If you're not having fun, I think it's dangerous to your mental health.
It is. Yes. And there's things that we can't get involved in. And what's easy to do is to get so involved in activism that we're not living our own lives. So then it starts to show up in you know, different symptoms and stuff. So pay attention to that. But yeah, and it's fun to be able to show those that are going to leave or looking forward to leaving that this is a good time. This freedom that we live in after we've left the org is a good time. Okay. And we're actually at peace. We're not in some gutter. I mean, some people do have a hard time and do become homeless and do become drug addicts, but that is not the main depiction of what most people end up having happen. So, yeah.
You know what, Linda, I never published my book. You know, I should. I get so discouraged sometimes. You know, but anyways, there's a quote that I put down, and it's from a radio talk show guy. I don't want to mention his name because I don't want anybody to not appreciate the quote. But basically, he says this: sometimes a man is so tied to a righteous cause that he believes he is the cause. So, going back to what you just said, that sometimes you're so involved in the apostasy movement that you forget what righteous cause you're part of, and you actually think The cause is you're the cause. And you know what? And our good friend John Peters is like that. He actually thinks that he's the cause. And it's like no, it's kind of like that movie My Fair Lady when she says, the world will be fine without you. I will be, and it's true. Sometimes we become so righteous. We fight for a righteous cause, and we get so into it that we believe that we're the center of the attention. It's like, no. And so it's good to take a break and say, hey, I have to be having fun. And I also have to have good fruit. Because remember,
yes.
If a tree doesn't give good fruit, chop it down. Same thing with your apostasy. If your apostasy is not giving good fruit and you don't feel better, like healthier, you need to go back to the drawing board and then come back and come back in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I still remember Halloween night of 2014, and the Vast Apostate Hour, or whatever it was called then, Army, did a Halloween show, and people were different characters, and it was just such a blast. And you were literally Charles Taze Russell.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good night. So I have these happy memories. I have very good memories of apostasy and those that are in the, who make some videos, and I've gotten to laugh from things that they've said. I've been touched by things that they've said too, but there gets to be, the organization tells us that we need to be really serious and stoic all the time. They talk about it during the baptism talk that, we're not supposed to just be all clapping and stuff. And matter of fact, they tell us when we can and cannot clap. It's like, really, dude? We don't get to become spontaneous. We are always on this. Is it okay to do this? Is it okay to do that? That's that's just a really bad place to be, really bad place to be. And when we get out of line, we can tell each other, you know what, that was a bit overboard. Okay, a little too much. Oh, thank you. So if we know we're hearing it from somebody that cares, it's much easier to receive feedback. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Yeah.
So things can be fun. So April Fools, you're planning on doing tell me again what you called that?
No. Tomorrow, my brother and I, we want to talk about how April Fools, it's greater than just April Fools and the subliminal message that Watchtower is giving, because everybody knows that it's not a coincidence. April 1st is not a coincidence. We know that. But April is the day, another day that proved that Watchtower's prophecies did not come true. Stephen Lett and Anthony Morris specifically gave speeches saying this is the end. And guess what? Even Dr. Fauci has stopped talking. It's like let's move on to the next subject.
Okay.
Fauci has forgotten about COVID-19 and he's moving on to something else. Well, Stephen Lett is saying, well, COVID-19 did bring Armageddon. Now this is going to bring Armageddon. Ukraine's going to bring Armageddon. No.
Always something. Yes, always something.
It's always
and see, this is actually the characteristic of what is considered a doomsday cult. A doomsday cult has that mindset of Armageddon is just around the corner, but what is also being involved in a doomsday cult is that you get to take part in ushering it to happen. So even that scripture, Matthew 24:14, this good news of the kingdom will be preached, and then the end will come. So we have this sense of we're bringing about Armageddon. So we are, when Armageddon does happen, which Jehovah is supposed to make it happen, we get to feel this sense of we were part of this prophecy. We were part of fulfilling prophecy. You see what I'm saying? Other doomsday cults in the past have done things that they had hoped would ignite and bring about Armageddon. So this is very doomsday cult techniques that they're promoting.
Belinda, let me just hit on that topic because he asked me about what I thought about the Bible, and I'm glad you mentioned this point because you see when you start reading Revelations, the Bible, and about the end of the days, we start thinking about other people and we start thinking about the world in general. well, what if we just not worry about nobody other than ourselves and just look at being on a personal perspective, and everything changes. I'll give you an example. Armageddon is coming. My hair is gray and I'm losing hair. When I get out of bed, I don't jump out of bed as fast as I used to because I'm aging. My personal Armageddon is coming, and guess what? The end is going to come, just like Jesus said. But I have a revelation now that it's not this thing that Watchtower paints on the red book, the Grand Climax, which is also not a coincidence to use that phrase. But I'm coming to find out that the
hear me? Did you hear my laugh?
I did, girlfriend. I did.
Because I was totally blocked, and my television was totally blocked. I don't know who blocked my YouTube, but they did a good job.
This is Pixie, and Pixie, this is Gilbert. Okay, go ahead, Gilbert.
Linda, the point I'm trying to get at is that when you start looking at things just on a personal level, you start saying, "Oh my God, the end is coming. I'm in my 50s, I'm in my 60s, I'm in my 70s." And now it's on a now personal level. You're not worried about you're not looking at the straw in other people's eyes. You're looking at the end coming in your lifetime. And
yes.
Correct, sir. You are absolutely correct. We all have a personal last day.
Exactly. And that's where our mistake is. We're looking at the Bible and trying to point fingers at everybody else, when we should be looking at these Bible texts and saying, "Oh my God, this is happening to me. I'm getting older. The end of my days are coming." And then that changes the way you view life.
Correct.
For the better.
Correct. Life is precious, and we have the present moment. Have you read Dr. Rick Strassman's book? He takes apart the Old Testament, and he's a physician, and he basically says Revelation was a mushroom trip.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
But they are visions, right? These are these visions, and many that I've heard speak about this stuff as symbolic, not necessarily literal, unless you get to the 144,000. They don't mention that they're all virgins. They just, the number's literal, not the 12 tribes.
On YouTube did the math. It was startling to me, but I saw their point.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I look at, when I think about Revelation, I don't know anything. I don't pretend to know. But one thing I think is so beautiful about Revelation is that a lot of people, when they leave the Jehovah's Witness Church, they become Bible scholars. I'm
yes.
Bible scholar. And
I can't waste any more time, but I was. Oh, Gilbert, I was.
But check this out.
Did you say, Gilbert, that you did not become a Bible scholar? I missed it. What did you say?
I did not become a Bible scholar. I didn't.
Okay, thank you.
Of grandeur. But here's the point. I subscribe to what Gandhi said, because Gandhi was asked if he was a Christian and he believed in Jesus, and he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "If you're talking about the Sermon on the Mount and only the Sermon on the Mount, then absolutely he's a Christian." That's what he said. But the point is real simple: is that Gandhi understood that if you just stick with 15 minutes of what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, all it takes is 15 minutes. You don't need anything else in life. That's all you need. But some people have this desire to say, "Well, I'm smarter than the 15 minutes that Jesus gave, and I'm going to start deciphering Revelation." Well, then I think the beautiful thing about Revelation is now we get to sift out the people that want to show off how intelligent they are. And why can't you just be like Gandhi and just be happy with the 3 chapters of Matthew, 5, 6, and 7?
Did you know Gandhi was an attorney? Gandhi was a brilliant guy in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he was a sinner too. He had his bad,
Yeah, but he was a highly educated person. Absolutely. He was an attorney. Mm-hmm. He wasn't just some guy sitting there in a loincloth. That was theater, so that his people would get equality.
No, but no, the loincloth was something different. The loincloth was it was something like John the Baptist.
Yes,
dressed with the loincloth.
What I'm saying is, even if you see the movie, in the first 5 minutes of the movie, he had gold rimmed glasses and a gentleman's suit. He was an attorney.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
he did the Gandhi that we know as a political statement so his people could get equality.
Yeah, but it was more than that. Let me tell you why. Because you're right.
It was a whole lot more.
A lawyer in London. No, but let me tell you why. What happened is that when he changed that clothing, he would rather be dressed like a person from India, his people, than to be dressed like the Londoners. He wanted to identify with his people. And John the Baptist, you have to understand, John the Baptist was a son of an old couple that gave birth miraculously. And
yes, I know my Bible, sir.
No, but that's the point. He was supposed to be a priest. Jesus was started his ministry. But instead of being a priest, he was out there in the wilderness, but he was dressed in such a way where he would say, I don't want nobody to even associate me with the people in the temple. He dressed in a way where he completely distanced himself. So it's like me. I will never wear a suit and tie anymore. I don't want to be associated with Watchtower. I don't want to be associated with anybody. All of the bad things that happen in the world today are all done by men that wear suits and ties. All of the bankers that steal
You have
from
a point there.
ties.
You might have a point there.
John the Baptist dressed the way he did because he was repudiating the religious leaders, and Gandhi was doing the exact same thing. Gandhi was doing the exact same thing. He wanted to be in association with the people. Jesus was with the sinners. He didn't want to eat lunch with the people of the temple. He wanted to eat lunch with the sinners. That's what his heart was, with the people. Of course it's true, because I'm the governing body. I'm the one giving you the proper food.
Giving us it, yes, the proper food at the proper time. That's spiritual food we're talking. Pseudo-spiritual food, because this is a pseudo thing about governing body, but I love it.
Not the salmonella spiritual food that Watchtower gives you.
And I'm sorry.
Hi, who's this?
Danny.
Hi.
Hi.
Have you met Gilbert? He's running for governing body. I mean, it's absolutely outlandish, and of course we know that he can't. Yeah. But the fact is, that's how he presents himself, and he's actually taken a picture of the governing body and put his face over, who is it? One of them that has already passed on, right? Right, Gilbert? Who is that?
Yeah, correct. I don't remember his name.
Okay, so, and he looks really good with them because they needed a Mexican, okay? They really did. And Gilbert does have a handsome look to him, and he fits right in. So that there, he is in a suit, and it does work. But I understand what you're saying, Gilbert. You don't wear a suit, and that's why, because it takes you back to those days, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I learned a funny new word today.
What's that?
Powertition.
Powertition. What does this mean?
Instead of politician?
Yes. What would a powertition be?
Podcast calls them powerticians because all they want is power.
Ah, yes. Okay. Okay. That's too funny.
Isn't that funny?
You know, my hope is that
I'm starving.
The word apostate becomes the actual definition from the dictionary rather than what the organization has made it out to be, and that people would be absolutely proud to be an apostate. Like, yes, I've changed my mind and I see things differently today, whatever way that is. You know, I don't see it as like my business to persuade somebody to go in any certain spiritual direction or not. But if I hear them say they're leaning towards Christianity or they're leaning towards this other thing, then, you know, I might tell them, check out so-and-so, check out so-and-so. But that's for the individual themselves to develop what they want to go towards as they're developing and who they are.
Anymore. You know,
I'm sorry.
I'm
What?
now I'm not a preachaholic.
Yeah, I used to.
Another funny word. I made that one up.
I tell you what, I just love being an apostate.
I do kind of feel like the apostates, in a way, are abolitionists, because I really see that some of these people are enslaved and
Very much so, yes.
chained. I would like to know what Gilbert feels about that from the Spanish perspective. Let's have the Spanish channel, Gilbert.
Yeah, my Spanish channel is doing great. I got to do more work there, but I'll tell you this about what apostate just said about the taking on the name of apostate.
Are you Spanish and not Mexican, or are you Mexican?
No, I was born in Mexico. And
okay, man, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and then I grew up in Yuma, Arizona. But here's the point: about the apostate, taking it as a badge of honor, and this is so fitting, because the Jehovah's Witnesses do not believe in the cross, and the cross is very interesting because it was a sign of a sign that you were a criminal, that you were crucified in the cross. So Jesus took that something so ugly.
Yes.
And he took it and he made it something that that people loved and actually carried it in their heart. So same thing with us now as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. We're saying, well, not only do we now embrace the cross, we also embrace every bad name that you can give us. So if Watchtower invented a new name, we would embrace it. So they call
That's
it.
right.
Well, I embrace it. So
yep.
So if you're not a Christian, that's okay. But now you understand how a Christian feels about the cross. Now you understand why you feel so proud to be an apostate. And one of the badges that I have in my videos is called Excellence in Apostasy. That's why, and you
I've seen that.
Yeah, so this is what you do. Whatever Watchtower throws at you, you embrace it. And you run with it, because you're not going to play their game.
That's right. Listen here. Then let me make this very clear. That's Ms. Mentally diseased to you. Is that understood? Thank you.
That's right.
If they disfellowship me, I'll send them a thank you note.
And we got to remember that before someone does get baptized.
So I do that. Go ahead.
I got a lot of beef for this. I got criticism for this, but it was about a bunch of crazy people. But everybody that saw the video understood it. They laughed. Remember Pillowgate when John Peters? The Pillowgate. Well, I saw this male penis on eBay. It was an award. It was called the Johnson Award.
Oh my God, I remember that. It was the color gold. Very realistic.
You guys deserve it.
This session is no longer being recorded because it's golden.
But I think Watchtower the Johnson Award because of the Pillowgate. And see, this is the thing. You gotta don't give Watchtower your power. Embrace everything, and just throw it back like a boomerang.
Correct.
The recording has started.
Woohoo! It started again. The recording has started. Yay!
I thought Linda James that was beautiful about no, it's Miss.
That's right. To you.
To you.
That's Ms. Mentally diseased. And I do have some mental issues. And many of us do. And
had to pay the postage?
No.
Some of us have inherited it, and some of us have received it from being in situations where it actually brings it about and or encourages it to happen. So yeah, I'm not ashamed of it, and I used to be. But most, I've also come to find that many creative people have mental issues as well. Think of Robin Williams, okay? The man was just brought us so much entertainment and
With the material that I read this week, which was very medical and scholarly, and it was talking about people in some of these groups and what they went through, most of the people that are active witnesses, if they were born into it or got into it at a young age, they would be pretty fractured people. I'm kind of patting myself on the back for being as healthy as I am.
Yes.
Do you know why the Jehovah's Witnesses have mental diseases?
Well, first of all, they're beaten publicly in a public place as children, for one.
Exactly. But because Watchtower is telling you the truth, they are feeding you spiritually, but they're not telling you the second part of the coin. It's that it's spiritual salmonella. Watchtower is feeding you poison.
Yes, I see the toxic nature of a lot of these.
You went, when you left Watchtower, you went on detox. You went on a different diet.
Oh, very much so.
I literally did. Yes, I did, sir.
We withdrawed. We had withdrawal symptoms. You're right.
Yeah. Watchtower's always going to tell you the truth, but only the first side of the coin. There's always the second side. And that's how
I see your point.
The demons work where Satan says, well, you will not die. Well, sure, you're not going to die today. You're going to die eventually. See, they're playing with words. And
yes.
Look at the book that's called "What Does the Bible Really Teach?" They highlight the word "really." But this is it really the case that God said? You see, that's how they.
Thank you for making that correlation. Thank you.
They do it in advertising quite often.
Yeah.
It's a way to sway opinion.
It is, and that there's an area where it's ethical, like it's okay to use these certain techniques, but if you use them, there's also an unethical way to use these sales techniques, and that's what I should have came up with earlier. But I'm really glad you brought that up. Really glad.
Also, I learned something else this week about the power tripping, because they flip-flop and change their views and want to change our views, whether we buy it or not. They don't care that they flip-flop, and they don't care that they're not making any sense. They do it to keep us off balance. It's part of their
Correct.
For years, I was trying to use logic to say, well, why did they say it that way? Or why did they flip-flop? Or what does it mean if it flip-flops? They're not looking at it from that perspective. And I hadn't seen the perspective of the puppet master until this week in that regard. They don't care that it's messed up, convoluted, strange, and bamboozlement. It's part of their bamboozlement technique to gain power over us.
It is. And I read. Please say that again.
I was just saying,
Gil?
instead of saying healing after the Watchtower, like your title of the video, it should say detox after the Watchtower. You should do a series of detox.
The things that we go through in the organization. So Pixie just mentioned they do things to give us to make us off kilter. So we don't have we don't have good footage. So we're insecure. Is this okay? Is that okay? So keeping you off balance is a very strategic thing that the org does. And then there's a bit of praise when you're behaving properly, as the org has taught us. And then there's this point of being of being shamed, of being making sure that you know that not to think more of yourself than you are. So it's the same power wheel of abuse is used on members. You know, the power wheel of abuse, that is used on members. And people wonder why battered spouses have such a hard time leaving their abuser spouse. What happens is they got addicted to the chemicals in their brain that gets released through this abuse of will. Okay, so they're not addicted to the abuse. They're addicted to the chemicals that happens when they're going through this wheel of abuse. So when they do leave, they literally are detoxing off of those chemicals that their body is used to receiving. That's why they go back. You know, that's why people come back to the cult too.
Right. And then one day you get it right, and then the next day what you thought was right, they tell you it was wrong.
Yes.
And so you're jumping through hoops all the time. The other thing that I learned this week, they were talking about, I know I brought up the fact that my mother lived several years longer because she may or may not have had the blood transfusion and the blood issue.
Okay.
This book I'm reading, which is very scholarly and medical and forensic about ritual abuse, that's the title of the book. I'm starting to think that to deny a blood transfusion to people, it kind of even fits in with these other groups that have blood rituals and so forth. It's tragic for the children that die. It's tragic for the pregnant women that die and so forth. But it's also kind of scary and trauma work for the elders that think they're the company man, but they go to the site at the hospital and the person dies. Now, we're seeing it as an us and them, or we're good and they're the enemy, or whatever we're seeing, but it's trauma for those men too. It's all a big blood ritual thing.
Yes. And the organization literally calls people that die because they refuse a blood transfusion martyrs. They call them martyrs. Let that sink in.
So what is Gilbert's view on that?
You know what? I'm not a professional on the blood, but I agree with you guys. I just, there's so many more people that know so much more about the blood issue. But I really do believe that you don't, all of the problems that we have is we get involved in things that we shouldn't get involved in. So a blood transfusion is none of my business, and no religion should have any business in this stuff.
True.
It's between you and your doctor. And I've learned
right.
that if you live a life where you, like Philippians 4:12 says, make it your aim to work with your hands and mind your own business. Make it your aim, and that's never taught us. I used to preach that, and elders would be like, "Oh my God, what? Where did you just read that?" These are elders that never heard this Bible text in the Jehovah's Witness Bible.
Thank you. I don't think I'd heard that one either, and that is great.
Yeah. In the Jehovah's Witness Bible, Philippians 4:12, I think it is. Make it your aim to work with your hands and mind your own business. And when it comes to blood transfusion, mind your own business. It's between the doctor and the patient.
Well, that's what I told them, and I saved my mother's life. She lived to be 102, Gilbert. And I demanded a meeting with the anesthesiologist when these 4 huge men and my tiny mother, when they pushed the paper in my face because I had the medical power for her. And so that's enough of that, because I've told this story on this site before.
You're talking the liaison committee, correct?
Yeah, and they were 4 of them, and they were big. And I've told that story many times here before. But the book I was reading, entitled Ritual Abuse, talks about some real horrific things with other belief systems, like Santeria, where blood sacrifices and things, these children had witnessed horrible things. And so I thought, well, wait a minute. Why are they so much blood transfusion thing? Because Deuteronomy says choose life, and Jesus said there's no unclean foods with Peter and the roof and all. And I thought, well, I see a correlation here of just traumatizing people. It's trauma-based mind control stuff.
And also, remember, Jesus broke the law of the Sabbath, right, according to the Jews. He broke the law of the Sabbath that to save an animal's life. Remember, he said,
yes,
to save an animal. So the point is, what's more important, following a law about the blood or about saving a life?
That's
and
correct.
The point is, we always have, at the end of the day, we want to be law-abiding citizens, but life is more important.
Well, Deuteronomy says life above all. That's a Jewish consideration. Even in the Old Testament, was to choose life. That was the highest law.
So he was actually following Jewish teaching. And I've checked on how, authentic Jews consider blood transfusions, and that's what they teach, that we would stop for the life of somebody. We would do whatever we would do and break the Sabbath for that. Of course, we would take a blood transfusion. So if it doesn't go against the conscience of an authentic Jew, why would it go against the conscience of a JW,
When I talk to Jehovah's Witnesses on the phone about stuff like this, I always tell them, I go, if you ever have the chance to read the Declaration of Independence in America, and you, instead of King George, you replace King George with the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, it makes perfect sense. You see, what happens is, why are we listening to some guy who lives 2,000 miles away on the other side of the world, and why is he dictating every little details of our personal life over here? And that's what you have. You have these men in New York who are dictating whether or not you could go get a blood transfusion or whether you can go to a prom dance. Who are these people?
Know me? Who are they? They don't know me. They, as Michael Jackson said, they don't care about us.
No, they don't. They don't. Only you care about you.
That's right.
Yeah.
But they have us believing that us making our own choices is dangerous. So we are to rely on them. And that's where the gaslighting kicks in. And that's how we give them the authority that they claim. Okay? That's a form of trickery. They tricked us into making us think this. Yes?
I've got a question for everybody.
Sure.
I'm not sure. I've been muted again. Am I there?
You're here, David. Yeah. I mean, Brian, forgive me.
On this blood transfusion thing, I read a book, actually not that long ago. I read it. I probably bought it when I was a JW, but I never read it till about 5 years ago. And it was a guy, it was a doctor who helped, it was his book. He helped, I think he was San Francisco area. He helped Jehovah's Witnesses who wanted to try and have their surgeries done without blood. And he perfected a bunch of techniques and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It made great strides in orthopedics.
And have any of you read that book? Right now I can't remember
I'm familiar with it because my mother's orthopedist said he talked to Patterson Hospital up there, and she had shots in her stomach and different things that helped her, and Procrit and different things that helped her. But it wasn't just some person going into a surgeon without the surgeon being prepped in the techniques that you're mentioning. And this
bloodless.
is my pay grade. It's from one surgeon to another, but he called them and got information from them to build up her blood and all kinds of things and techniques and things that were used. So it can be done in orthopedics, but so many pregnant women die and so many little children die that have certain conditions that would be immediately remedied with a blood transfusion. So medicine is above my pay grade with all problems.
This guy was anti-blood or anything? It was
no,
just,
I'm saying to you, yes, they've made great strides in bloodless surgery with orthopedics. In that specialty, they've done great things. But the number of pregnant witness sisters that have died, that's where they've not had the techniques to save the life without blood.
Yeah. No, I just wondered.
And what I found, and I can't find the site now, in World War II, when the blood transfusions came in, because my ancestor knew Dr. Drew, he was a black doctor, and my white ancestor, who was a physician, they used to have lunch every day, or at least regularly, because they lived near each other. So blood transfusions.
Who's Dr. Drew?
He invented blood transfusions as we know them today. There may have been some little bit experimental.
He was in the field over in Europe during the war. Is that?
He was in Arlington, Virginia in 1945. His name was Dr. Drew. He was a black doctor. He knew my ancestor. They had lunch together. They were both surgeons.
but they started using blood transfusions quite a bit in the field hospitals during the war, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Okay. So was he over there? Because you said 1945. That's when the war ended. Did you mean 1940 or what?
Yeah, probably. But he was having lunch in the 50s with my ancestor.
I see. Okay.
Okay. And he was a Black American doctor named Dr. Drew. And my ancestor was a white guy who had lunch with him. They were in the same profession of surgeon. What I found out online, and I can't find the page again, that happens in my world now, they needed a control group for field hospital numbers of who made it and who didn't. And it looked like this archival paper, it looked like the witnesses had signed up to be that control group.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
70 years ago. So
yes, it does.
Members of this church shouldn't have to be the control group anymore. But the people don't know that. They think
That's right.
It's a biblical thing. If they just saw that paper that I saw on the website, that would have flipped their wigs.
This really backs up what I believe as well.
Yeah. I talked about this before. There's a movie, documentary about about 3 identical strangers, about those triplets that were separated at birth, and it was an experiment. It was an experiment that these people were doing. These evil doctors were doing on nurture and nature. But anyway, it goes to show that that's always been using human beings as test subjects. So this thing, and I talked about how we as Jehovah's Witnesses were like test tubes. Looking back, I felt like I was in a petri dish, and these crazy people are looking inside. So what you're describing is not conspiracy. This is I don't put it past these evil people to use.
No, sir, this was an archival document. This was not a conspiracy. This was an archival history document.
No, but I'm saying those that listen will say, no, you're crazy. No,
those that listen don't know me.
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder if they aren't. I sometimes wonder now if it's not a stupid club, because it's like so what is the word? Incredulity? Is that a word?
What would that mean? I would.
Where people, you can't believe how stupid they are.
Right, and what it really is gullible. I mean, what would make us not use our own head to make a decision, but do something somebody else says? They had to gaslight us.
And they're sitting in hard benches 2-3 times a week, listening to somebody else tell them how to be and what to do, and the second grade level on everything. And I'm like, what? Do they just want to have groups of stupid people now? I mean, these were my people. You and I have discussed this before.
Right.
Well,
we believe this. These were my people, 3rd generation with this club. Now I'm like, I cannot have a conversation with them.
And Gilbert has talked a lot about them being dumbed down. Is that where you were going, Gilbert?
Yeah. Yeah, I talked to Rick Barron about this, and I said it's just a conspiracy. That is it possible? Because you talked about this earlier in the debate about the money, the banking, the way they steal property. Is it, and closing a kingdom hall? Is it possible that Watchtowers? How can we make such stupid prophecies, such stupid teachings, and get all of these people to leave on their own? Because if these Jehovah's Witnesses were to leave on their own, then it's easier for us to steal their money. I'm just thinking, as a conspiracy.
I'm kind of going down a long-term thinking on trying to think like the other guy, and I'm kind of seeing what you're saying, and I'm like, am I the only one that sees this? Because it looks like they're dumbing it down worse every day.
And I truly believe that the religion is the beard, is what covers up this thing behind that they don't want the world to see. That we're the cover. The religion is the cover. We're the beard. We're covering them up. So as we go into the video stuff and everything, I don't think it matters so much how many of us there is, but that there is some. because they have to have some of the Jehovah's Witnesses to act as their cover. So when I hear people talk about bringing down the org, I get all that. But what happens is cult leaders have a time where they peter out, okay? But because we have a governing body of many people and we keep reinventing, rebranding, it gets recycled. So that's what's been going on with the org. They keep doing this over and over and over again, and that's what's happening again. We've had a good 10 years of the members pointing at the jw.org sign, and now we're going into the media. We're no longer a publishing company. Now we're going into the media.
You know, they used to print maps. You can hardly get a map printed anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not print maps for National Geographic because they don't offer it with their subscription anymore. Remember, they used to offer that gigantic map. Where was that printed?
I don't know, but he's got one actually in the the room he uses to make his videos.
Yeah, I know. I want one, and I can't get it anymore.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying, Gilbert, about are they just going to take off? And what do we need to do to get rid of them? They've already set stuff up to where the governing body is going to be raptured. We didn't grow up on that. They were going to come through the Great Tribulation and walk into the paradise with us. And now they're going to be taken off ahead of time? This does sound like things are being set up.
Darby your idea, whenever that was, and now they're believing it.
I didn't hear this. Can you say it again?
It up with anything.
Can you say that again? What? Can you repeat that, Pixie?
A long time ago, there was this gentleman named Darby who was a Scottish theologian, and he came up with the word rapture.
Right.
1800 or so. And we were always told, well, that word rapture is not in the Bible, so don't believe any of that, even though Jesus goes up into the air and all these different things. So we weren't supposed to use the word rapture. And now you see the governing body, the black guy there, he's talking about how he's going to be raptured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but again, they're on a power trip. They don't have to make sense. They can flip-flop as much as they want to keep us off kilter and make us in a weak position so they can be in a power position.
Yes.
Pixie, did they actually use the word rapture? No? Or they just
I'll have to watch the second time, but
the org has not, no.
Did. He really implied rapture, and
it is implied, yeah, but they don't use the word, no.
From the theologian Darby in 1800 or whatever.
I have another theory that was happening, and it goes back to what King Solomon says about, you work so hard and then you look and your son takes over and he causes a civil war and the nation gets destroyed.
Can you come closer to your phone for some reason, Gilbert? You're sounding a bit far away.
Yeah, when you look at Watchtower like a business,
better.
Like look at in your city, there's a business, and there was a man and a wife who built a business. Because they died, they needed to their children, and they don't have the grandchildren don't have skin in the game, and so the business just falls apart. Well, Watchtower the same way because Rutherford and Russell had skin in the game, and so did Norm, and these people were actually workaholics, and they actually believed their lives, and they had skin. So now you're having the governing body of 2022 is not the same governing body of back then. They actually, the governing body of the 1980s, they actually were really graduates. They actually were missionaries. They were actually out on the field. These guys are like are like Joe Biden's son. He has all of the money, but he's never really had to work for it. And so
you're saying that the guys now are like that in the past they were what Eric Hoffer would call true believers, which is a good little booklet that everybody should read by Eric Hoffer called True Believers.
No, I'm saying.
But you're saying the group now are not true believers.
They're not true believers. They know it's not true, and they don't have skin in the game. So they really never built a congregation. They really never built a religion like the other guys did.
Right.
And because of that, their business model is falling apart, just like you do anything else. The business and because you have a governing body of 8 men, you do not have a strong central authority figure like a CEO. You have 8 men that are fighting every Wednesday over power, and so nothing is done. And that's how communism falls, by death by committee. They can never get anything done because you have to go through committee upon committee upon committee. And so that's what's happening with Watchtower, is that there's nobody, and that's why, like, if you had somebody like me as a governing body who would take the lead and be there all the time, well, then things would get done. What you have is a governing body that of men that are not believers. They never really were missionary graduates. Anthony Morris was not in the high mountains of Bolivia.
No, he was not.
These people are the grandchildren of the workers that built. Look at the governing body of today had parents like Franz and Rutherford and Norn, who actually had machines that built things. These guys don't have machines.
I see exactly what you're saying. Sure.
So that's probably what's happening too with the Jehovah's Witness decline. There's nobody with a clear vision saying, "Hey, we need to restructure. We need to redo this."
But they're going to have the big film studio to have lots of propaganda. That's probably a modern move, and then they can charge people a monthly fee to subscribe to it as if it was Stars or another television thing, like Cinemax or whatever, HBO.
But you don't have a strong executive saying, "Look at Stephen Lett. Do we really want to have Stephen Lett on primetimejw.org?"
No, because he looks like the guy from that temple thing.
Exactly, and the point is that the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses is lacking a strong central figure. They don't have that, and because of that, they're suffering.
I see your point. We made a good business point there.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that you, me, Rick Farron, Apostate Linda James, anyone can do a better job than these clowns in the governing body. Any one of us.
Yeah. Also, too, they seem to be a day late and a dollar short in terms of fads and getting the young people. And now they've got popular music. They're trying to get the younger people. So I don't know what their statistics are with, who's the next generation going to be. But if you look at the modern world, like these tech companies, nobody wears a suit and tie anymore. A relative of mine in LA, she's looking for a dress because she wants to go back to the Kingdom Hall. It used to be where I live that spring, everybody bought a new suit and a new dress if they could afford it. And people aren't even dressing for now. I'm waiting. Is Kohl's going to send me an Easter flyer this year? Because last year it hardly covered this country. So people don't dress like that anymore. They're not going to church attendance. We've got gas prices are high. Everybody goes to Zoom or not at all. So this opening of the Kingdom Halls, I mean, the world has changed.
Correct. And it goes back to have weak leadership. And Rahm Emanuel talked about it in the Democrats. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Watchtower is going through a crisis, but they will not hire a good PR firm to bring them back on track.
Well, I could do it. You and I could go up there and get that contract right now.
Exactly. Now,
but don't you think they have a big presence in Latin America and Africa that would keep them afloat financially?
Well, the thing is, they don't have money. The big money is in the
too. They've got the people, but not money.
Because the beautiful thing about having 1 million Jehovah's Witnesses in the United States is that the old people would die and leave their inheritance to Watchtower. But
don't get me started, because everyone's heard this story, but I'll tell it briefly again. My mother was 102. I said, okay, Bible study lady can come and study with me. Bible study lady says to my mother, who was baptized in 1936, "Oh, sister, you wanted to give us your house, don't you?" And she looked at her and said, "Depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I knew you not."
Yeah.
She was sharp that day.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then the sister says, well, you want to give your house to the governing body. They're Jesus' brothers. And my mother looked right at her and says, no, Jesus' brother was James.
Correct. But yeah, Watchtower hasn't changed with the times. Look at the Mormon Church. They changed, and because they changed, they prospered. You know, if you don't change, you die. And that's just the fact of this earth. In earth, it's always changing, and if you don't change, you will die.
But the Mormons also are the largest corporation in America, according to Newsweek, one of the largest, and they also have college-educated people.
Well, but see, because that was part of their change. Before they used to disfellowship people, just like Jehovah's Witnesses, but they got wise. They're like, why are we going to disfellowship people that are going to give us 10% of their income? So
right.
But the point is, love them or hate them. I'm not endorsing the Mormons. What I'm saying is that they're an organization that saw the writing on the wall that they needed to change, and their executives changed. Watchtower doesn't have that. They have a weak central body, and they don't have a central figure like Nathan Norn. And that was what happened in the 1970s with Nathan Norn and Frederick France, when they got rid of the central authority and they went to a committee of 8, 10, 12 governing body members. And that's
I met Orr when I was 4. He had some very big shoes. That's what I remember about him.
Well, look.
I remember when he died.
But no, look what happens when you have a strong executive. Nor is a strong executive and you have a Gilead school. Nor is a strong executive and you have the ministry school. See, Nathan Norr is a strong executive who got things done. You can't have a love him or hate him. You can't have a religion like the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses and prosper, because you can't get anything done.
Right. I see what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying. Exactly.
Yeah. And so that's the problem that the Watchtower has. So it makes you wonder. I think part of it is they're incompetent, and they don't want to give up power, and they don't want to. It's like Congress not wanting to surrender their power to the president. And that's basically what you have here. The governing body is now a Congress. And
what do we know? What do we know about the other? I have had this question for my entire life. We have the governing body in that corporation. And there's also that other office, I think it's 25 such and such street. There's a business office that's never discussed.
Correct.
There's a head of the corporation that's never discussed. Who the heck are those people?
Yeah, I talked to Mike Brooks, Mike and Cam and Mike even said that, hey, that kind of stuff will get you shot and killed, about finding out who the executive shareholders of.
I don't think anyone knows.
Well, Pennsylvania, yeah. I think that's what the secret is at Watchtower, Pennsylvania. Nobody knows who the shareholders are, and if they were to find out, heads would roll.
Hello?
But yeah.
They're probably the Freemasons.
Well, it's a top secret. It's very secret, and they do it through shell corporations, So, but
so it's just the money then. Those are just the people with money.
Hello, Hidley. Hi, Hidley.
We were invited to a shareholder meeting, and my dad said he didn't learn much. He says it wasn't what I thought it would be. So I guess it was just a bunch of people talking about money.
Well, there is. Remember, they always tell you tidbits of truth. Loesch told the judge that he doesn't answer to Watchtower. He's telling you the truth. Loesch doesn't answer to Watchtower, Bible Tract Society of New York, let's say. But he answers to somebody. But when he tells you that he doesn't answer to Watchtower, he's telling you the truth. But he's not telling you the whole truth and nothing but the truth. He's just telling you, hey, I don't answer to Watchtower. But Watchtower has a lot of corporations like the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, Watchtower, Bible Tract Society of London, and all that. So when Loesch told you that he doesn't answer to Watchtower, he's telling you the truth.
The lie by omission.
So Gilbert.
Yeah, it's a lie by omission.
This is hello, Gilbert. This is Hitler.
Yeah, I'm here.
So in other words, you're saying that there's some real big movers and shakers who are over the governing body. that if you get something, that they find something, or someone finds something out, it's almost like a company or country where espionage, they could, take the subjects out because everything is covert. Everything is covert.
Yeah.
And like the other young lady,
Probably just accountants.
Freemasons.
Probably just a bunch of accountants and a lot of money. Probably just really very boring.
Yeah, but very powerful people don't want you to know who's behind, who the shareholders of the corporations are, because at the end of the day, they have to answer to the shareholders. They're a corporation.
Oh, that's true. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. The Watchtower is a corporation,
But
and they have to answer to shareholders.
Are they witnesses too? Are these shareholders?
No, they're not.
Because somebody else.
No, because the
okay. Because
you're
said something about that these shareholders may not be witnesses. So there's these. So the governing body and the helpers are telling people not to deal with non-witnesses. They're answering to non-witnesses then.
correct, because think of any corporation. For example, think of any corporation. You have people that work for the corporation, and you have shareholders. They're two separate things. You have a shareholder, and you have the workers of the corporation. But at the end of the day, the shareholders have the ultimate power. And who owns it? It could be, we don't know. But I will tell you one thing, that we hear stories all the time of where people are dying and their shareholders. Watchtower goes over and tries to get grandma to hand over her shares.
Yeah, well, my mom wasn't going to do that, like I told you. She wasn't going to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so she gives it to her daughter, and her daughter gives it to her daughter. And chances are that the people that are shareholders are not Jehovah's Witnesses.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi.
This is really macabre, I say, not to interrupt you, but this is really macabre because they're telling everybody else, oh, when it comes to really stay away from those who are not witnesses. If you do deal with them, try to get them to, to convert them and blah, 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 everything. But yet it's still the movers and shakers, the real power behind all this are people who don't even, they do their own thing. They're probably into all kinds of stuff. They're probably into some demonic stuff. They're probably celebrating holidays and having wild sex and drinking and all kinds of stuff, while we, meanwhile, at the ranch, while we, as witnesses are told, no, don't do this. Oh, no, don't do that. Don't do this thing, or else we're going to excommunicate you and everything. This is freaking wild. This is freaking wild.
Well, they do have a lot of different stock, and one of the stocks they had was Consolidated Brands, which has a lot of whiskey holdings.
Well, at the end of the day, Jehovah, the God of Watchtower, has a corporation in New York, and his people are governed by a corporation under the bylaws of Pennsylvania and New York, and the shareholders are secret. So Jehovah has secret shareholders that are directing his people. I mean, that's a simple answer to your question.
I got one for you, Gilbert. Since you
Yeah.
have a brain that's as brilliant as mine, maybe even more. I saw a brilliant Canadian documentary. It's on YouTube called The Corporation. And it's about law. And it said you can't sue a corporation and that a corporation is a person. So
Correct.
what they've done basically, maybe, is take the Jewish name from the 13th century, which really isn't from the Hebrew, Jehovah, and they've turned him into a corporation.
And I've always wanted to do a video on this. What happens is this. It's a corporation that never dies, and it becomes a dinosaur, and it gets bigger and bigger. And it just gobbles and gobbles and gobbles. And because it never dies, look at Walt Disney. Walt Disney didn't die. What happens is the corporation kept growing, and then it bought out another company, And now
Right.
Disney is this one big dinosaur that never dies. Well, same thing
Right.
with Watchtower. Watchtower is a dinosaur that got either eaten up by another dinosaur or is eating up other dinosaurs. Who knows? But this is
So
the
you're
problem.
seeing what I'm saying. Thank you.
So what happened is, this is the problem. When people don't die, when corporations don't die, like GE, Disney, Watchtower, when things don't die, they grow bigger and bigger, and they gobble up. And so this is why we have all the problems that we do. Is that corporations like the Mormon Church actually have their own senators that they buy. The Mormon Church is more powerful in some countries.
Oh, they were on the cover of Newsweek. I couldn't agree with you more.
Exactly. So this is what happens. Because these companies never die, because JP Morgan Chase never dies, they can get away with billions of dollars worth of financial fraud, and the government doesn't do anything about it because they're just as powerful as the government. How is that possible? Well, it never dies. And Watchtower is designed the same way.
The part on YouTube called The Corporation, and it explains all of this from a legal perspective.
Yeah. This is how they get so powerful.
Legal is so important.
Yeah. This is how these corporations get so powerful and so evil. This is how these religions get so evil. A good religion dies when the pastor of the church dies, and then somebody else takes over and makes a new one. But when you keep having somebody live forever, see, living forever is not a good thing. You know, it's good thing that humans die, on Earth, because if you have, imagine if your boss is 900 years old and you're only 50. I mean, my God, you're never going to move up in the company.
Well, your analogy to Disney is a good one, because I had a friend of my parents had worked on Snow White, so Disney certainly isn't the same as it was.
Yeah, so that's the point with Watchtower. Watchtower is a corporation that will die, and Jehovah's organization on Earth is governed by shareholders that are silent, are secret, anonymous. That's it in a nutshell.
Hold on just a minute, guys. I need to catch Rick because I'm wanting to transfer over to the phone. But while I do that, I'm going to need you guys to keep talking. So Rick does sound like he might be awake now. Rick, are you there? Would I be able to transfer over to phone at this time?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is let them finish, let them talk a little bit, and then I'll get on the phone and I'll say hi. And then can you finish up the show?
Yeah, let me end the show. Go ahead. Yeah, switch over. We'll get you on the phone. Call up the phone now, and we'll get you off YouTube. Yep.
Okay, so I'll do the phone thing. So you guys go ahead and finish talking or go by what Rick suggests. I'm going to exit and then get on the phone. Okay, guys? Am I making sense? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I guess, Pixie, that's the whole point. At the end of the day, we could just break it down to Jehovah's organization here on Earth is governed by unknown shareholders of corporations in New York and Pennsylvania and London.